Welcome to this edition of Safety First. I'm your host, Tim Butler. Today we're going to be talking about the upcoming hurricane season, what to expect, how to prepare, and how the COVID-19 pandemic kind of plays in with everything. Today I'm joined with Richard Stevens, Deputy Emergency Management Coordinator for Suffolk Fire and Rescue. How are you doing today?
Doing great.
So with the season upon us getting ready to start, we've already kind of had a little bit of activity going on. Is there anything that we can kind of expect this year, any kind of predictions?
Well, as far as predictions go, like you said, we've already had Arthur, tropical storm, develop in the Gulf. But as far as predictions, they're predicting 18 named storms, 9 hurricanes, 4 of which they're predicting to be major. Now, the key to that is it's fun to look forward to the predictions and what to expect. But the key point is it only takes one. It only takes one to hit the area, whether they predict 20 or whether they predict 5. If one affects the city of Suffolk, then that's what we're worried about. So while it's fun and exciting to get up involved in the predictions, a high season, low season, it only takes one to affect us, and that's why we always need to be prepared.
Right. And speaking of being prepared, what are some of the steps or some of the things that we need to do to prepare?
Well, your typical preparations include having an emergency preparedness kit. In that kit, you have things like 3-day supply of water, flashlights, battery radio, first aid kit, things of that nature. Things that you would want your family to have if you had to sustain yourself for 3 days, minimum of 3 days.
Okay, and with that kit doesn't have to be just those things. It can be tailored to the person, right? So like you can add extra things in there. So like if I have a sweet tooth and I know I'm going to have this kit for 3 days, I want to prepare to have that craving or whatever for that too, right?
Yeah, that's correct. You can have the basic necessities, but then you can deviate from that and have what works best for your family. If you have kids, you can have board games. Make sure their electronic devices have batteries to help keep them occupied and things of that nature. And one thing you always want to remember too is prepare for your pet. If you have a pet, make sure you have plenty of supplies on hand for them as well. If that means additional water, dog food, medicines that they may be taking, then that's part of your kit as well.
Okay. And with this, is there a particular size typically that a kit normally would be, or is it something where you see all different sizes and things?
You see all different sizes. Like you said, it's catered to your individual family or your individual needs. As part of that kit, you have those items, but you also have a communication plan. For example, if you are asked to evacuate and leave the area, you want to have a way that people can get in contact with you. If your family's split up, if someone's off to school or out at a different location on vacation, you want to be able to get in touch with your family. So you want to make sure you have cell phone numbers, a meeting place if it's outside the area. If you're going to another family member's house to ride out the storm or whatever the case may be, you want to make sure you can communicate with them as well.
So no one has to worry and everybody's on the same page with everything.
That's correct.
Okay. With that in mind, I guess the evacuation routes like Know Your Zone and things like that would kind of play in with that a little bit.
Yeah, as we mentioned in previous years, we have Know Your Zone. It's knowyourzoneva.org is a website you can go. You can type in your address, and it'll tell you what zone you're in, whether it's A, B, C, or D. Or you may not even be in a zone. A lot of parts of Suffolk aren't even in a zone because they're not close enough to the water. And the Know Your Zone only pertains to tidal flooding. Right. It doesn't account for rainfall flooding. It's just tidal flooding. So that's why you see most of the zones near your waterways, near the Nansemond River and things of that nature. Where down south in Holland and Whaleyville, you may not be in a zone. Okay. But anywhere it rains, it can flood. And so that brings us to another point. You always want to be prepared for a flood.
Right.
And a key part of that is making sure you have flood insurance.
Now with that, I believe you have to have that 30 days before a storm would actually come through, correct?
That's correct. So the best time to get it would be now. And really the ideal thing would be to set up an appointment with your insurance company or your agent, sit down and go over all your policies, all your homeowner policies, find out what's covered, what isn't covered, if you need a rider, if you need if you need flood insurance that's not covered, like you said, it usually takes 30 days for it to go into effect. So it's not something you can wait and say, oh, a storm's out there, I'm going to go get flood insurance real quick. You have to get it well in advance, and now's the time to prepare and plan.
Gotcha, especially since we've already had Arthur kind of come up and it is right around, so.
Oh, one thing I wanted to mention too is as far as your emergency preparedness kit, with COVID-19 and everything we're dealing with now, part of that kit that hasn't been in the kit in years past may be sanitation wipes, make sure you have masks for your families, things of that nature. And another key part of that, and I'm sorry,
No, go
I
right
can
ahead.
go on forever with this stuff, but is medications. Make sure you have a list of your medications and make sure that they're filled before you leave to go to a shelter or before you leave to evacuate.
If you were to go to a shelter, do you take your kit with you, or do you have like another kit that you'd have to prepare for going to the shelter?
When you go to a shelter, you could take your kit, and you want to make sure you have some linen, something comfortable for you to lay on, sleep on. But yeah, you can take your kit because you want to make sure if you have children, you want to make sure they have something to do, electronic devices and so forth. So really, if you could take your kit, absolutely, it would help with the family and keeping them occupied during the day and night and so forth.
With the different types of shelters that we have, are certain ones better for certain things?
Yeah, we have 3 main shelters, and those are the 3 high schools: Lakeland, Kings Fork, and Nansemond River.
Okay.
Lakeland is just a general shelter. Kings Fork is what's quote unquote our medical shelter. It's close to Obacy.
Okay.
The whole shelter area is generator supplied, so all the outlets, all the lights, everything works. So if somebody needs to hook up an oxygen machine or another medical device, they're able to do so. And then Nansemond River is our pet-friendly shelter. If you have a pet and you need to evacuate and you want to take your pet with you, that would be the shelter to go to.
Okay. Now, you kind of touched on a little bit with the COVID-19 about what to have in with your kit to be prepared for that. What are some of the things that people can expect if storms were to come through and they had to go to a shelter or something like that? What can they expect with going to one, or what they have to deal with?
Right, well, opening shelters during this time is still in the planning stages. Virginia Department of Emergency Management should come out with guidelines for the area on how to utilize the COVID-19 protections in the shelter. That could be depending on how many test kits are available, if everybody's tested, or at least if everybody's screened before they come in, get their temperature taken, make sure they have a mask. If they don't have one themselves, provide one for them. Make sure that they're not symptomatic. And so forth. And so that would be part of the entrance into the shelter.
Okay. And then once they're in there, they would have to abide by the social distancing and the things like that, the current guidelines that we'd be following.
Correct. Yes.
Okay. All right. Do you have anything else you'd like to add?
No, just now's the time to prepare. Don't wait till the storm's coming. We've already had one, like you said, Arthur. Luckily, it didn't really affect us a whole lot. But the time to prepare is always right now. So get your kit. We've seen how the COVID-19 affects grocery stores and things on the shelves, so you don't wait till a storm's coming to try to get those items and fight the crowds. Have them ahead of time and plan for the emergency.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for being here today. That'll do it for this edition of Safety First. I was your host, Tim Butler. Thank you.